The bathroom floor was cold beneath Zainab's knees as she stared at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. Her hands trembled, and for a moment, the luxurious marble tiles and golden fixtures of Park Jin's Gangnam penthouse seemed to close in around her. 4 months in Seoul. 2 months with him. And now this. She heard the front door open, his footsteps precise and measured across the hardwood floor. Zainab shoved the test into her pocket and splashed cold water on her face, but when she looked up, Jin was standing in the doorway, his dark eyes studying her with that unnerving intensity that had first drawn her to him at the networking event. "You're pale," he said, stepping closer. His hand reached for her face, gentle but possessive. "What's wrong? I need to talk to you." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "About us. About everything." Jin's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Anticipation, maybe even satisfaction. He took her hand and led her to the living room, and that's when Zainab knew. He already knew. Somehow, he'd always known everything. "I'm pregnant," she said, pulling her hand away. "And before you say anything, I need to restart my birth control. I need to figure out what to do. You can't restart something that never stopped working, Zainab." Jin's voice was calm, almost tender. He walked to the bar and poured himself a whiskey, his movements deliberate. "The pills I've been giving you for the past 6 weeks weren't birth control. They were placebos." The room tilted. "What did you just say?" "I replaced them. I needed you to stay. He turned to face her, and there was something raw in his expression now, something desperate beneath the controlled exterior. "I needed you to have a reason not to leave me." Zainab's legs gave out, and she sank onto the couch. "You had no right. You had no right to make that choice for me. That's my body, Jean. My life. I know." He set down his glass and crossed to her, kneeling in front of her. His hands gripped her knees, and she wanted to push him away but couldn't move. "I know it was wrong. But I also know what I am, Zainab. I know what I do. And I know that the moment you found out the truth about me, you'd run. So I made sure you couldn't." "The truth about you?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "What truth, Jean? That you're controlling? That you're manipulative? I'm already seeing that." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, sweetheart. The truth that I'm the head of the Crimson Circle. That every dollar that pays for this apartment, every designer piece in your closet, every meal we've shared, it all comes from things that would make you sick if you knew the details." The words hung in the air between them. Zainab had heard rumors, whispers at the networking events about Park Jin's real business, but she dismissed them as jealous gossip. Now, looking at the man kneeling before her, she saw it clearly, the violence lurking beneath the expensive suits, the danger in those careful hands. "I need to leave," she said, standing abruptly. "I need to get away from you." Jean rose with her, catching her wrist. "You can't. It's not just about me wanting you here anymore, Zainab. You're carrying my child. That makes you a target for every rival faction in Seoul. That makes you—" "Don't." She yanked her hand free, fury replacing the shock. "Don't you dare use this baby as another way to control me. You've taken my choice, my agency, Your job wasn't real either." The words stopped her cold. Jean walked to his desk and opened his laptop, turning it toward her. On the screen were files, dozens of them, with her name, her photo, detailed reports of her movements, her meetings, her relationships. "Global Insight Solutions is an NIS front," Jean said quietly. "National Intelligence Service. They recruited you 6 months ago, before you even left Nigeria. They manufactured your job offer, your visa, your entire life here in Seoul. You were supposed to get close to me, gather intelligence, report back. You were their asset, Zainab. An unwitting spy." She scrolled through the files, her stomach churning. Every coffee meeting with other expats, every networking event, every friendship she'd made, all of it documented, analyzed, orchestrated. There was even a file on Fatima, her closest friend here, labeled Handler, Secondary Contact. "No," Zainab whispered. "No, this can't be real. I would have known. I would have." "They're very good at what they do," Jean said, moving behind her. His hands settled on her shoulders, and she didn't have the strength to shrug them off. "They found a smart, ambitious Nigerian woman who wanted to work abroad. They gave you everything you wanted and asked for nothing in return except that you attend certain events, meet certain people. You thought you were just good at networking. You didn't know every conversation was being recorded, every interaction analyzed." Zainab felt tears streaming down her face. "Why are you telling me this? Why not just let me believe? Because I need you to understand that out there, you're a pawn. To them, to my enemies, to everyone. But here, with me." He turned her around, his hands cradling her face. "Here, you're everything. You're the only real thing in my life, Zainab. The only person who ever looked at me and saw something worth caring about." "You trapped me," she said, but her voice cracked. "You violated my trust, my body, I did." His thumbs wiped away her tears. "And I'd do it again if it meant keeping you safe. If it meant keeping you here." Before she could respond, Jean kissed her. It was desperate and claiming, his hands tangling in her hijab, pulling her closer. Zainab knew she should push him away, should run, should do anything except kiss him back. But her body betrayed her, responding to his touch with a hunger that terrified her. Because despite everything, despite the lies and the manipulation and the violation, part of her still wanted him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jean pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you," he whispered. "I know you don't believe me. I know I've destroyed any reason you had to trust me. But it's true. And I will burn down everything I've built to keep you and our child safe." Zainab pulled back, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. "Love isn't supposed to feel like a cage, Jean." "No," he agreed, his expression unreadable. "But sometimes a cage is the only thing that keeps you alive." Before you continue with Zainab's story, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think Jean should do next. Should he let her go, or is he right about the danger she's in? 2 days passed in a blur of silence and tension. Jean gave Zainab space, sleeping in the guest room, communicating only through Taeyong, his head of security. But the apartment felt smaller with each passing hour, the weight of her pregnancy and her impossible situation pressing down on her chest. On the 3rd day, Jean knocked on her bedroom door. "Get dressed," he said. "Something nice. I'm taking you to dinner." "I don't want." "Please, Zainab." His voice was soft, almost pleading. "Just one meal. Then we'll talk about what happens next. I promise." She found herself agreeing, hating the part of her that still responded to his voice, to the careful vulnerability he only ever showed her. She chose a modest navy dress and rearranged her hijab, studying her reflection. She didn't look like someone whose life had imploded. She looked like a woman going to dinner with her boyfriend. The restaurant in Itaewon was small and intimate, tucked away from the main street. Jean held her hand as they walked in, and Zainab didn't pull away. What was the point? Everyone else saw her as a tool, a means to an end. At least Jin's obsession with her felt personal, even if it was twisted. They were halfway through their meal when Jean reached across the table and took her hand. "I know I can't undo what I did," he said. "But I want to try to make this work. I want us to be a family, Zainab. A real one." "How?" She didn't pull her hand away. "How do we build something real on a foundation of lies? We start telling the truth. All of it. No more secrets between us." Zainab opened her mouth to respond, but the words died in her throat. Behind Jean, the restaurant door burst open. 3 men in black tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised. Time seemed to slow as Zainab registered the suppressed pistols, the cold efficiency of their movements, the way they were all focused on Jean. Jean moved before she could scream. He flipped the table, using it as a shield as he pulled Zainab behind him. Gunfire erupted, muffled pops that were somehow more terrifying than loud bangs. Taeyong and Sang-woo materialized from nowhere, their own weapons drawn, returning fire with practiced precision. Zainab pressed herself against the floor, hands over her head, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. She heard screaming, breaking glass, the heavy thud of bodies hitting the ground. Jin's body covered hers, one hand cradling her head, the other holding a gun she hadn't known he was carrying. "Stay down," he hissed in her ear. "Don't move. Don't look." But she did look. She saw Taeyong take down one attacker with 2 shots to the chest. She saw Sang-woo grappling with another, snapping his neck with brutal efficiency. And she saw Jin, her Jin, who'd held her so gently, who'd kissed her with such desperate tenderness, put 3 bullets in the third attacker's head without hesitation. The silence that followed was deafening. Jin pulled Zainab to her feet, checking her for injuries with hands that shook slightly. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" She shook her head, unable to speak. The restaurant was destroyed, tables overturned, bullet holes in the walls, blood pooling on the floor. The owner and the few other patrons were huddled in the corner, terrified but unharmed. "Taeyong, secure the perimeter. Sang-woo, clean this up." Jin's voice was cold, commanding, nothing like the man who'd been holding her hand minutes ago. He turned to the restaurant owner, pulling out a thick envelope from his jacket. "For the damages. And for your silence." Then he was pulling Zainab toward the back exit, moving fast but keeping her close. A black SUV was already waiting, engine running. Jin pushed her inside and climbed in after her, barking orders at the driver in rapid Korean. As they sped through Seoul's streets, Zainab finally found her voice. Who were they? The Jade Dragons. A rival faction from Busan. Jin was checking his phone, his jaw tight. "They've been trying to move in on our territory for months. Tonight was their message. They tried to kill you in a public restaurant. They tried to kill both of us, Zainab." He looked at her then, and there was real fear in his eyes. "This is what I was trying to tell you. This is why you can't just walk away. You're not just my girlfriend anymore. You're carrying the heir to the Crimson Circle. Every enemy I have will be coming for you now." The SUV pulled up to a helipad. Zainab stared at the sleek black helicopter waiting for them. "Where are we going?" "Busan. I have a compound there, secure and fortified. You'll be safe until I can neutralize the threat." "I don't want to go to Busan. I want to go home. To Nigeria. To my family." Jin's expression softened. He cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. "I know, sweetheart. I know. But right now, home is wherever I can keep you alive. Please. Trust me just this once." Zainab wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but the memory of those gunmen was too fresh. She let Jin guide her onto the helicopter, let him buckle her in, let him hold her hand as they lifted off into the Seoul night. The compound in Busan was exactly as he'd described, a fortress disguised as a luxury beachfront estate. High walls topped with cameras and sensors, armed guards at every entrance, bulletproof glass in every window. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Jin led her to a suite on the second floor. It was decorated in soft neutrals, with a massive bed and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. "You'll be comfortable here," he said. "Anything you need, just ask. Taeyong will be stationed outside your door." "So I'm a prisoner now. You're protected." He moved closer, his hands settling on her waist. "There's a difference. Is there?" Zainab looked up at him, searching his face. "Because it feels like you've been collecting cages for me. First the apartment, then this compound. What's next, Jin?" "A prison cell decorated with silk and gold." He flinched as if she'd struck him. "I'm trying to keep you alive, Zainab. I'm trying to keep our child alive. Why can't you see that? Because it's not just about survival." Her voice rose, all the fear and anger of the past few days boiling over. It's about choosing for myself. It's about having some say in my own life. You keep making decisions for me, about my body, about my safety, about my future, and you dress it up as love or protection, but it's still control, Jean. It's still a cage. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Jean pulled her into his arms, and Zainab let him, because she was so tired of being strong, so tired of being angry. She buried her face in his chest and finally let herself cry, for the life she'd lost, for the future she'd never have, for the impossible situation she was trapped in. "I'm sorry," Jean whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry, Zainab. I never wanted this for you. But you chose it anyway," she said against his chest. "You chose this the moment you replaced my pills." "I did. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I swear it." He tilted her face up and kissed her again, slower this time, more tender. His hands slid into her hair, careful not to disturb her hijab, and Zainab felt herself melting into him despite everything. Because this was the cruel truth. She was furious with him, terrified of him, trapped by him, but some part of her still wanted him. Still responded to his touch like her body didn't care what her mind knew. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jean pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured. "Please. I just need to know you're safe. That you're here." Zainab knew she should say no. Should demand her own space, her own terms. But the memory of those gunmen was still too fresh, and the compound was too quiet, and she didn't want to be alone with her thoughts. So she nodded, and Jin's relief was palpable. They lay together in the massive bed, Jin's arms wrapped around her, his hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. Zainab stared at the ceiling, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her back, and wondered how she'd ended up here, pregnant with the child of a crime lord, trapped in a fortress, caught between two kinds of captivity with no clear way out. 5 days passed in the Busan compound. 5 days of luxury and captivity, of Jean trying to make her comfortable while guards patrolled outside her windows. On the 6th day, Zainab was sitting on the terrace when Taeyong approached, his expression carefully neutral. "You have visitors, Miss Ibrahim. Agent Lee from the National Intelligence Service, and your friend Fatima." Zainab's heart leaped. Fatima. Her friend, the one person in Seoul she'd thought she could trust. She followed Taeyong to a secured conference room, where a severe-looking woman in a dark suit sat across from Fatima, who looked pale and worried. "Zainab." Fatima jumped up, rushing to embrace her. "Oh my God, are you okay? When you disappeared, I filed a report with the embassy. I thought something terrible had happened." "Something terrible did happen," Agent Lee said coolly. "Miss Ibrahim has become entangled with one of South Korea's most dangerous criminal organizations. We're here to offer her a way out." Zainab pulled away from Fatima, her stomach sinking. "A way out?" Agent Lee opened a folder, sliding photographs across the table. "Crime scenes. Victims. Evidence reports. Park Jin is responsible for dozens of deaths, Miss Ibrahim. Human trafficking, weapons dealing, money laundering, the list goes on. We've been trying to build a case against him for years. You're our best chance at finally bringing him down. You want me to testify against him." "We want to offer you protection," Agent Lee corrected. "Full witness protection. A new identity, relocation abroad, financial support. You and your child can start fresh, somewhere safe, away from all of this." Fatima gripped her hand. "Zainab, please. You have to take this. You have to get away from him." Zainab looked at her friend, her handler. She corrected herself bitterly. "Did you know?" she asked quietly. "About Global Insight Solutions? About what they recruited me for?" Fatima's silence was answer enough. Fresh pain bloomed in Zainab's chest. "We did what was necessary," Agent Lee said, unapologetic. "You were in a unique position to access Park Jin's inner circle. The fact that you became personally involved was an unexpected complication. But it also gives us leverage we didn't have before. Leverage. Zainab laughed, the sound bitter. Is that all I am to you? To everyone. Just leverage. You're a victim, Agent Lee said firmly. Park Jin has manipulated you, trapped you, forced you into this pregnancy through reproductive coercion. Let us help you escape. Let us give you your life back. For a moment, Zainab almost said yes. Almost grabbed onto this lifeline they were offering. But then she thought about what Agent Lee was really offering. A different cage, a different kind of captivity. Witness protection meant constant surveillance, restricted contact with her family in Nigeria, always looking over her shoulder. It meant letting them use her testimony, her story, her trauma as a weapon against Jean. It meant never being free. What happens to my family? Zainab asked. My parents in Kono. My siblings. If I testify against Jean, if I help you destroy the Crimson Circle, what happens to them? Agent Lee's hesitation told her everything. We can't guarantee their safety beyond South Korea's borders, but... So they become targets too. Jin's enemies, the people who want revenge, they'd go after my family to get to me. We would do everything in our power. Your power didn't stop 3 gunmen from attacking us in a public restaurant, Zainab said flatly. Your power didn't warn me that you were using me as a spy. Your power means nothing to me, Agent Lee. She stood up, and Fatima reached for her. Zainab, please. I know you're angry with me. I know I should have told you the truth. But I genuinely care about you. I genuinely want you safe. Then you should have been honest with me from the start. Zainab pulled her hand away. Both of you saw me as a tool. At least Jean. She stopped herself, shaking her head. At least Jean never pretended to be anything other than what he is. He's a murderer, Agent Lee said coldly. He's violent, dangerous, and obsessed with controlling you. You think staying with him is choosing freedom? You're choosing your abuser, Miss Ibrahim. No, Zainab said quietly. I'm choosing the cage where I know the locks. Where I know the dangers. Where I'm not pretending to be something I'm not for people who see me as expendable. She left the conference room, her hands shaking, and nearly collided with Jean in the hallway. He'd clearly been listening. His face was tight, his eyes dark with emotion. You stayed, he said, his voice rough. You chose to stay. I chose not to trade one prison for another, Zainab corrected. Don't mistake this for forgiveness, Jean. Don't mistake this for trust. But he was already pulling her into his arms, kissing her with a desperation that stole her breath. His hands were in her hair, on her face, sliding down to her waist, holding her like she might disappear. And Zainab kissed him back just as desperately, because she was so tired of being strong, so tired of being smart, so tired of analyzing every choice and finding them all terrible. When they finally broke apart, Jean was breathing hard. I'll let you go, he said suddenly. If that's what you really want. I'll give you money, resources, protection. I'll make sure you and the baby can live safely, freely. Just say the word, Zainab, and I'll let you go. She searched his face, looking for the lie, but found only raw honesty. He meant it. He would actually let her walk away. And somehow that made everything so much worse, because if he'd truly been nothing but a monster, the choice would be easy. I can't, she whispered. Because you're right. Your enemies would find me. Agent Lee's protection wouldn't be enough. And even if it was, even if I could disappear completely, I'd be alone. My family would be at risk. My child would grow up never knowing her father, always looking over her shoulder. At least here, with you. You're safe, Jean finished. His hands cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheekbones. I know it's not freedom, sweetheart. I know it's not what you deserve. But I swear to you, I will spend every day trying to make this life bearable. I will give you everything I can. I will. Stop, Zainab said, placing her fingers on his lips. Stop making promises you can't keep. Stop trying to make this something it's not. I'm staying because I'm choosing survival, Jean. Because I'm choosing the option where my child has the best chance. Not because I forgive you. Not because I love you. Because I'm choosing the lesser cage. Something broke in his expression, but he nodded. I'll take it, he said hoarsely. Whatever you're willing to give me, Zainab. I'll take it. That night, Zainab tried to escape. She waited until Jean left at dawn for a meeting with his lieutenants, counted the guard rotations, found the 15-minute window when the east gate was briefly unmonitored. She made it all the way to the perimeter wall before Sangwoo stepped out of the shadows. Miss Ibrahim, he said gently, please don't make me stop you. Then don't. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. Let me go, Sangwoo. Please. Just this once. Look the other way. He studied her for a long moment, and Zainab saw the conflict in his expression. Then he pulled out his phone. I have to call him. You know I have to. Jean arrived within minutes, still in his suit from the meeting, his face pale. He didn't yell, didn't rage. He just stood there, looking at her with such devastation that Zainab felt something crack in her chest. I said I'd let you go, he said quietly. I meant it, Zainab. But if you're going to run, at least let me give you the resources to survive. Let me. I can't do this, she interrupted, her voice breaking. I can't be here, Jean. I can't be your kept woman, your prisoner, your... my everything, he finished. He moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. That's what you are to me, Zainab. Not a possession. Not a prize. Everything. That's not love, she whispered. That's obsession. Maybe. He stopped in front of her, close enough to touch but keeping his hands at his sides. But it's all I have. It's all I've ever been capable of. And I know, God, I know, that it's not fair to you. That you deserve someone better, someone whole, someone who knows how to love you without destroying you. But I can't let you go, Zainab. I can't watch you walk away and know that I'll never see you again, never hold you again, never know if you're safe. Tears were streaming down her face now. So what do we do? How do we live like this? We negotiate. Jean finally reached for her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. We set boundaries. We establish rules. You want freedom? I'll give you as much as I can without compromising your safety. You want contact with your family? I'll arrange secure lines. You want a life outside of this? He gestured at the compound. I'll build you one. But please, Zainab, please don't run. Because if you do, I'll follow. And we'll just keep hurting each other until there's nothing left. She looked up at him, at this dangerous, damaged man who'd trapped her and claimed to love her, and felt the last of her resistance crumble. Not because she forgave him. Not because she trusted him. But because he was right. They would destroy each other if she ran. And at least here, in this moment, they could try to build something from the wreckage. I want out of Korea, she said. Both of us. I want us to leave, start somewhere new where your enemies won't find us. Where our child can grow up without guards and guns and constant fear. Jin's eyes widened. You want me to leave the Crimson Circle? I want you to choose, Zainab said firmly. Your empire or your family. Because you can't have both, Jean. Not anymore. Not if you meant what you said about giving me everything you can. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. Okay. I'll dismantle it. I'll make deals, trade intelligence, negotiate immunity with the NIS and the prosecutors. It'll take time, months, probably. But I'll do it. For you. For our child. He pulled her closer, his hands framing her face. For us. Zainab searched his expression for the lie, for the manipulation, but found only exhausted honesty. He meant it. He would actually give up everything he'd built, everything he'd fought for, because she'd asked him to. Where do you want to go? Jean asked softly. Nigeria. Malaysia. Somewhere else entirely. Somewhere quiet, she said. Somewhere no one knows us. Somewhere we can try to figure out who we are without all of this. He kissed her then, soft and gentle, and Zainab let herself sink into it. Let herself feel the warmth of his hands, the steady beat of his heart, the promise of something that might not be love but could be survival. When they broke apart, Jean rested his forehead against hers. "I'll make this right," he whispered. "I'll spend the rest of my life making this right." "Don't make promises you can't keep," Zainab said, but there was no bite to it anymore. Just weariness and a strange, fragile hope. 6 months later, Zainab walked through a quiet neighborhood in Incheon, her hand resting on her swollen belly. The house Jean had rented was modest by his standards. 2 bedrooms, a small garden, far from the luxury of the Gangnam penthouse or the Busan compound. But it was theirs, and it was real, and for the first time in months, Zainab felt like she could breathe. Jean, now going by the name Kim Min-jae, worked at a shipping company's administrative office. It was legitimate, legal, boring. He came home every evening smelling like paper and printer ink instead of danger and expensive cologne. The transition hadn't been easy. There were nights when he woke up from nightmares, when his hands shook from the weight of everything he'd given up. But he never complained. Never regretted. They were leaving for Nigeria in 2 weeks, before the baby came. Zainab's parents didn't know the full story, just that their daughter had fallen in love with a Korean man, that they were starting fresh, that there was a grandchild on the way. It wasn't the truth, but it was close enough. That evening, Zainab sat on the small balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jean joined her, settling into the chair beside hers. He didn't reach for her hand, and she didn't reach for his. They existed in this careful space of proximity without pressure, of presence without promises. "Do you ever regret it?" Zainab asked quietly. "Giving it all up?" Jean was silent for a moment. "Every day," he admitted. "But then I come home, and you're here, and I think, this is better. This is real. What I had before was just power and violence and emptiness. This is something worth keeping. Even though I don't love you." He turned to look at her, and there was something raw in his expression. "Even though. Because maybe someday you will. Or maybe you won't. But either way, you're here because you chose to be. Not because I forced you, not because you had no other options. You chose this, Zainab. You chose us." She thought about that, about choice and agency and all the ways they could be stripped away and rebuilt. About how she'd been a pawn for everyone until she decided to play her own game, make her own moves, accept her own checkmate. "I chose survival," she corrected. "I chose the path that hurt the least." "I'll take it," Jean said, echoing his words from months ago. "Whatever you're willing to give, I'll take it." The baby kicked, and Zainab winced. Jin's hand hovered near her belly, asking permission, and she nodded. He placed his palm gently over the spot where their daughter was moving, his expression softening into something that might have been wonder. "She's strong," he murmured. "Like her mother." "She'll have to be," Zainab said. "Growing up with our story. We'll give her a better one," Jean promised. "We'll give her the truth, the whole truth, and let her decide for herself what it means. We'll give her the choice we never had." Zainab looked at him, this man who'd violated her trust, trapped her with pregnancy, forced her into impossible circumstances, and saw not a monster or a savior, but just a deeply flawed human trying to be better. It wasn't love. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something they could build on, brick by careful brick. "Okay," she said finally. "We'll try." Jin's smile was small but genuine. "That's all I'm asking for." As the sun set over Incheon, Zainab felt her daughter kick again, felt Jin's hand warm against her belly, felt the weight of their complicated, damaged, somehow surviving story settle around her shoulders like a cloak. It wasn't the life she'd imagined when she'd boarded that plane to Seoul 8 months ago. It wasn't the fairy tale ending she'd dreamed of as a girl in Kono. But it was hers. She'd chosen it, claimed it, made it her own. And in a world where everyone had tried to use her, control her, shape her into something she wasn't, that choice, however small, however constrained, was everything. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Hit that like button if this story kept you on the edge of your seat, and don't forget to subscribe for more intense, emotionally charged narratives. Drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from? And what do you think about Zainab's choice? Would you have done the same? Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, remember that sometimes survival is its own form of strength.